Yeah.
Okay, I think it's recording now. Hopefully it is. But
Yeah, it is.
so can we get a little bit of background from you, Ian, first, just so I know
Yeah,
like what level you're at and where you come from and stuff.
absolutely. I don't know how far back you want, but I'll just start with I was a middle school science teacher for 4 years, 1 year in Thailand and 3 years here in New York. After that, um, I actually decided to switch careers a month before everything happened in March, but luckily I got out of teaching before COVID hit, and I went to the Flatiron School this past July for a 15-week boot camp, and I graduated in October. And I've been doing the job search grind ever since, studying and looking for jobs.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so we're gonna build this mock-up that we're looking at right now. Um, I'm not a designer, that's why it's not beautiful. But the whole point is just to like test to make sure you can use APIs because we're going to use the API to get the data, and then just some basic layout, get it to display in a grid that looks certain, something like this. It doesn't need to be pixel perfect. Just something general that like resembles this. Let me invite you to the code sandbox. And if you don't have a code sandbox, you're gonna have to sign up. I forgot to mention that.
Okay, I can do that quickly.
Um, so that's the link. You can just sign in with GitHub too. So if you already signed into GitHub, you can just like, oh, you're there already.
Yeah, it looks like I think I had to use one of these for an interview challenge once before.
Um,
Cool.
okay, so right here is in the app.js. Um, you can just code everything in here if you want. If you're not familiar with the code sandbox, on the left-hand side, there's some icons, and like if you click the Explorer, if you want to make CSS classes, you can put them in this style of CSS.
Okay.
And if you want to just put inline styles, it doesn't matter. I don't care too much. It's just for the sake of this exercise. So if you want to
Cool.
just write all the code in here, that's fine. And
Awesome.
then if you see over here, there's like a console. So if you want to console log stuff, um, there's also React Dev Tools and stuff, but I haven't used it too much. So
Okay.
I don't know. I
All
don't know
right.
if you'll need that.
And where are we getting our photos from?
So in the comments over here, there's
Okay.
documentation for the API to use, and it will tell you how you can fetch 100 users. And
Cool.
we just want to fetch 100 users when the page loads, and then display them in
Say
a
100.
layout that looks similar to this
Awesome. Request
with
multiple
the
users, results 500. All right, got it.
and then you can just ask me any questions, Google anything, um, and if you do Google stuff, just let me know, communicate like what you're looking up or like what you're thinking and stuff,
Yep.
just just so
Absolutely.
I know where you're headed.
Okay. So looking at the mock-up, I'm thinking all we're gonna need, I guess on an outer level, so to speak, would be we'll have this H1 maybe that has welcome to Facebook or the Facebook, um, and then a div that's gonna hold our grid for all of these photos.
Mhm.
So let me put that in here. This will be my first time pseudo coding React, so that'll be cool. Um, So we're going to have a div that holds our photo, we'll call it our profiles. We'll just call them profiles for now. And those profiles are what? They are just a photo and a username.
Yep. Yep.
Usernames. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. And we have our app here. And instead of hello world, I'm going to see what we can't do here. We'll start with our H1, like I said. Ooh, no autocomplete. Okay. This will be fun. H1, and it's going to say, welcome to the Facebook.
It does prettify when you do Command S though. So.
Ooh, okay, cool. I like that. Thank you. And after that, we'll just make our div. And in order to get these, I'm thinking we will have to use some sort of, whoops, some sort of fetch, obviously. Let me just put this in a, I forget what this is called, a fragment, right? So to get our data, we're probably going to want to store that in state. So I'm going to import use state from up here. And I will call this users, and we will have set users, and that will be equal to use state. And that's going to be an array. What invalid hook calls? Hooks can only be called inside of the, oh, we're not inside app, duh. All right, put that there. Still that, but that's just because they're not being used. Okay. And what I want to do is, we'll say on page load, we want to make our fetch request. So I'm actually going to use, I really hope this works. I'm going to use effect. And when I do a use effect, I'm going to make the fetch request. And I'll put a empty parentheses here. I believe this will allow it to make the call only on page render. And we will make our fetch request. So fetch is going to be, oh, I changed my copy and paste. I apologize. Let me go get that link real quick. All right. So it's going to be this, except we only want 100, you said, right?
Yep, just to make it simpler.
Okay. Hopefully this will work. We have our dot then with our response to JSON. And for right now, let me just console log our response so we can see what we get.
Yep, I see it.
Cool. So we have an object with the results that's an array and info. And all we need, I believe, is this results that are each objects. Okay. So let's see. We're going to take this and we're going to say that we are going to set users. Oh, sorry. Nope. We are going to take our user data and we will set users with results. No, what was it? Oh gosh. Oh yeah, results. But it's going to be user data dot results, which is an array. And after we do that, just to make sure, let's console.log our users. That doesn't like that. Okay, so I'm not going to do that. We can hope for the best. So that will give us our users. Get out of here. Oh my gosh. I've never worked with this before. I apologize. What's my problem? Value is assigned but never used. That's okay. So what we're going to want to do inside this div is I'm going to make a function and I'm going to call that function map users. And what that will return is our users.map, a mapped out version of a div for every user that we have data for.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Sounds good.
I'll do a user, and that's going to return a div with an image tag where the source is equal to, let me do this for now. Is there any way that I can get this to re-render? Do I refresh the page for this?
This button right here, you can, like on the browser part, there's like
Yeah.
a refresh thing.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna console this out real quick. And here's where I will console.log users, and I'll call the function here to get a console log out of it. Map users. Okay, so we have our objects, and each one comes with our name. Oh, that's their regular name. We want their login username. Yes, okay, so that's going to be login.username. And you know what, so eventually we are going to want, come back now, we are going to want each user's login.username, and we want their photo, correct? So picture, object.picture. Do you have a preference whether I take the large, medium, or thumbnail? Probably thumbnail, right?
It's part of the challenge for you to figure that out.
Okay, cool. I'll stick with the thumbnail for now, and you know what? I'll go medium. Medium sounds like fun. So this is going to be picture.medium. Okay. So let me comment this back in. We don't need our console log anymore, and our image source is going to be user.picture.medium. Cool. Look at all those people. And what is this not like? I'll put an alt here, which is going to be user.picture. Nope, just kidding. User.login.username. There we go. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
a
what
good choice. Those pictures are kind of small though compared to the mockup.
They are. They are. You are correct. Really? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let me take the large then. Thank you for the hint, kind sir. I appreciate it. Okay. So next off underneath, we want their username. So I'm going to put that in maybe an H4. H4, let's see what that size looks like. H4, and this is going to be user.login.username. Maybe a little bit big, so how do we feel about a P tag? Yeah, maybe that's a little bit better. I can always change the font size later if need be.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Cool. Okay. So what I'm gonna do now is I think I'm going to turn this into a grid. So I will give this an ID of user grid. That sounds fairly nice. And in our styles, this is not Sass, right? So I'm just going to go down here and say user grid, hashtag user grid. And inside our hashtag user grid, I'll say display grid. And our grid grid template columns, right? And each one.
You can
Sorry?
Google it too. And so you can Google any syntax you want.
So I believe this is right. If it doesn't work, I will definitely Google it. We want each one to be a fifth. Can I work? I am going to Google it. I apologize. I'm going to look for grid template columns repeat. There we go. That's what I want. Cool. We're going to say repeat 5 1 fraction a piece. And we get something that looks like that. That looks really cool. And so if we have 5 across, we're going to have 20 down. So grid template rows. We'll have this repeat 20 times, also each 1 fraction. So we have our squares. And that should be 20 down. Now, if we want to make this look a little bit more like this, we'll say, let's see. Each of these divs, which I will call, give it a class name of, we called these profiles before, so I'll call them profiles again.
Okay.
So each profile is going to have, I'm thinking a border of 2 pixels solid, and we'll make it gray. It looks a little grayer in that mock-up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's good.
And cool. And we're gonna give each one some padding too to make it look a little bit cleaner. We'll say 25 pixels maybe. Okay, I like it. I'm going to give each image, are these the only images on the page? They are, obviously.
Yep.
So I could say hashtag image, just, you know, for later in case we want to add other images. I'm going to add a, one down here. I'll say dot profile hashtag image. Nope, dot profile image. So any image that is inside the profile. And we'll give it a border radius of, I think 25% should do it. Nope, not quite. 50%, will that give us our circles? That will give us our circles. And inside here, we can say text align center to make our text centered. And if I'm not correct, that looks good, except we need our exclamation point in Facebook, and we also need to center the H1. So let me quickly do that. Text align.
One more layout request. If you can like center it on the page.
Center everything. Yeah, absolutely.
Because like right now they're like, if you have like a wide like 49-inch screen, the squares will be like really big.
Okay, let me do that. So in order to do that, I will say that our grid itself can have a max width. Do you have a preference on how much of this screen you want it to take up once it's centered?
No, just so that it resembles the mockup a little bit.
Okay. Cool. So I'll say 66% and make it 2/3 the size of the page.
Yeah.
And then for the app itself, I'm going to, I'll say display, well, it's already display flex column. What is it? I believe it's justify content center. That didn't do it.
Where are
So,
you seeing that it's flex?
well, it's not flex already, but it is oriented top to bottom the way that I'm looking for.
Also, just to give you a hint, it doesn't look like you have this class applied anywhere.
The app, oh, the app is not automatically.
I think you deleted it.
Oh, silly me. Oops. Okay. So let me do this. I will just make this a div, div, and we'll call this a div. And we will give this a, I think classically React gives you a class name of app, so I'll stick with that. App. Cool. That's
Yeah,
back.
there you go. That looks, yep.
Better. We're still not centered. Justify content center. That didn't do it. Is it align items or do I need display flex on it? I believe I need display flex, so let's add that.
So yeah, if you're aligning items,
Yeah.
you need to have display flex.
Flex, and we'll give it a flex direction of column. Oh, wow, that none of that did what I wanted to do. Cool. So display flex, flex direction, flex direction. Come on.
Now your title disappeared though. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, that's back now.
That was good. You did that pretty flawlessly without Googling anything. But I'm gonna add a feature request.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also want to be able to filter by username. So if you could add an input box like above it, where as you type like rabbit, then it will only filter like the usernames and show me like the usernames with rabbit in it or frog or whatever like that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I love that you used frog, by the way. I love frogs. They're super cool. Never get enough credit. They absolutely never get enough credit. All right, let's roll. So we want to filter by username. So I'm sorry, you said you want to be able to click to put this in a form, right? Essentially in an input and have that filter.
Yep. So just add an input like right above, like under the header.
Yep.
And if you type anything in there, it just starts filtering as you type. Like
okay, cool. So we're gonna have our input, and this is going to be a type text. And our value, we'll make it a controlled form overall. So, oh boy. Okay, here we go. Our const, what should we call this? We'll just call it input, and we will set input with use state. And initially it's going to be nothing. So our value for this will be, it's going to be input. Okay, we've got that. Now we need to make an onChange, and we are going to call that our change handler. So let's make a change handler. Under here, we say const change handler is equal to, we want to set input to it's going to be e.target.value, and that means this needs to take in an event. So once we type in here, let's console.log target.value to make sure we're getting what we want out of this. Let's type in frog. There it is. Yay, cool. So we get our input, and once we change this, okay. Now, instead of map users, we want to actually filter our users. So, okay. This is our users that we're getting from our fetch request, but what we want is actually a filtered users in our state, which will default to all of the users initially until we change it. Yeah. And that's going to be use state, which is, now I've never done this before, but I'll just do this for now. We'll see if this works. Okay, so we have our filtered users state. On change, we're going to set our input, and what's going to happen is down here, we are actually going to, let me think for 2 seconds. It's been a while since I've created a search function. Okay. So what I want to do is, okay. I'm going to create a function that's called filter users. And this is going to return a filtered out version of our initial users. So return users dot filter, and we want to filter for every user whose username, we want all the usernames that include our input, so to speak, right? So it doesn't have to just be frog, but frog 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, my favorite. Okay.
Yeah.
Include.
And anywhere in the name, like if I'm looking for somebody that has panda in their name or cat or whatever.
Cool. Okay, so that's going to include input. And we want the user, sorry, where user.login.username includes our input from state. And how we want to call this is every time this changes, every time our input changes, set input, and I'm going to call this, okay. I don't think we're going to need our map users function anymore. So I'm going to create another use effect for when input changes. Effect. So when every time input changes, it will call my filter users function and return us the new array of users. So every time this happens, we are going to call filter users. What don't we like about this? Filtered users assigned a value, but set filtered users, right? what we actually want to do is instead of returning this, we want to set filtered users. Oh my gosh. Let user array
So
equal.
just to give you a hint, you got a typo. The names aren't matching with your set.
Oh, I apologize. Okay. Set filtered users. Cool. Set filtered users. That's going to go here. So our user array is going to equal this. And here we go. Now, user array can equal user array dot filter for our users, and we are going to set filtered users with this new user array, but it doesn't like that unexpected token where we okay. So now that we've got our filtered users, let me console.log our filtered users so we don't do too much without knowing where we're at. What don't you like about this? Filtered users, filtered users. Every time. Okay. So let me see. Let me type, that says angry, so let's type angry. We're not getting any console logs, so this is not getting called. What don't you like about this?
I just typed in cat and it worked.
Oh, it did. Oh, all of these have.
There's probably no angry on the page. It's different users. The API returns random different users every time. And when you make changes, it's like hot reloading. So it's like fetching a new batch of users.
Got you. Okay. So right now my page says purple. If you're saying it's working, I do trust you. Filtered
It looks like it's working.
Is not defined for me. Filter users, filtered users. I have to work on my naming conventions here for sure. Okay, so we've got filter users and filtered users. We want to set filter users. Okay. So once we've set the filtered users, what we're going to do instead of map users, we are going to just map our filtered users. Okay. So currently, filtered users is nothing, but what we actually want is for this to, should this default to our users array? No. Oh, that's input. Oh, I have one. Oops. Filtered users should default to. Okay, so this is interesting. I'm a little bit lost on.
The default is an empty array. So if you're spreading it right there, that's just the empty array.
Oh, the default for users is an empty array, right? But oh, so we have to figure out how to, once the data loads in.
Yeah, and
What's
just
up?
to give you time warning, let's spend like maybe like 5 more minutes on this.
Okay.
And then we can like go over feedback.
Yes, please. Okay, so all I need to do is figure out how to get this to default to what we want. Give me 1 second to think for a sec. If that's defaulting to a user, user data set users, user data. I don't know, probably not the best practice, but we could set them. Oh, why did it change? And if we do this, oh, it works. Okay.
So yeah, it looks like it's working.
It is working.
You still got one more warning. You want to get rid
Yeah.
of this warning about the keys?
Use effect has a missing. About the keys. Oh yeah, each in a render. So
yeah, the yellow lines are just lints. You don't have to worry about that for the challenge.
So each of these should have a key. And what this key is going to be equal to. Let me, one last time, I'm going to console.log our users, so I can see if there's something helpful. Oh, perfect. I'll just do this. I will give each one a key that is users.index of our user. That really did not like that. Must only be assigned non-empty expressions. Two children in the same key, -1, which really doesn't help. Oh, I just refreshed the page. Oh my gosh. Oh, okay, it's back. We're good. Okay. So keys console. I currently don't have any errors. If I remove that, will I get an error again?
Well, if you refresh, like nothing comes up though.
Yeah, I realized that. Oh. So it comes back.
It's because
Okay.
I think you solved the problem earlier with the filter, but it didn't actually like,
Yeah.
it just hot reloaded. But like as soon as you did like a page refresh, the logic's actually a little bit off.
It is a little bit flawed. It is also telling me that I can't edit in read-only mode now that I've refreshed the page. So I've gone and mucked everything.
I gotta add you back, but yeah, we're wrapping it up anyways. But thanks for volunteering. That was
Thanks.
good. Yeah, you just went straight through, and you did really well. Got up to the stretch challenge, which is adding the filter. On that part, I thought you were gonna get it like right away, but then you like fumbled a little bit. So
I did.
I can show you how you can simplify this a little bit. So generally, you don't want to like keep state double the state. It's more transfer errors. So you're storing the data twice, like in users, and you're storing this data already exists in here. So like you don't actually need this. Like you can just do this. Like you had it. I thought you were gonna just type it in. It was gonna be
Oh,
like you can just do this. You can just filter it like when you're gonna use it.
Cool.
So there you go.
Wow.
So you're close, and just like then once you started complicating it, then you kind of like fell off track there. But like if this was a real interview, like I probably would still pass you on to the next round, because your communication was really well. I could see where you're going. I knew what you were doing like the whole time, and that's kind of that's like really important.
Thank you.
Yeah, good job. That's that's the only feedback. Like when you're dealing with state, like you never want to try and like, if the data is the same, you just like, it's just like filtered, or like you change the shape of the data or something like that. It's
Mhm.
not a good idea to keep the state in two different places stored in different
Yeah.
variables. You'll run into bugs all the time.
Yeah.
The better way is just to store it in state and then manipulate it like when you're gonna render it. Like make like you can make like, you could keep your filtered users. Like the other way to do it would be like to like keep this function, but then like just like you had it something like this, like return like
Yeah, it was just that.
there's like, could do it like this, and this would clean this up a little bit, and you just go.
Right.
I thought you were gonna do that like right away, and I was like, oh, um, filter. Like,
Cool.
so like you can make these like helper functions just to keep it cleaner like this. And sometimes like those functions will get really gnarly. Like this is a simple exercise. Sometimes you get the backend data and you need to like reshape it like a lot.
Mhm.
Then I usually extract those functions into a separate file. I call them data mungers usually. I have like a convention of like files I make. I make data mungers, I make selectors. Selectors I call selectors. So when the object is like complex and nested, I don't like inside of the component to be like accessing the like deep down values inside the object. So I make this thing called selectors that just tell me like, give me all the users out of this like gigantic object, and then the selector goes and gets it. And then I can unit test all those things really easily. Like when you have all the logic inside of a component, it's hard to test it. So like
Okay.
if it's simple like this, I usually leave it in the component. But if it gets like the logic starts getting complex and it's not just like a simple filter, I usually extract it into a separate file to write like unit tests and stuff. But like, I don't think you would ever have to do that in an interview. Like, most of the time in the interview, like you can just put everything all in one component like we were doing. But yeah, your CSS, HTML, using API skills, yeah, you had it all down. Like you did it super fast. Like
Thank you.
it's
I
pretty
appreciate it.
good. You didn't even have to like Google any of these like uh syntax. Or did you Google the grid syntax?
I
I don't even
Googled
know.
repeat. Yeah, the repeat
If,
aspect.
even if you did, it doesn't matter. Like engineers Google all day. So like it doesn't matter if you're Googling, you, as long as you're telling the interviewer like what you're Googling, just so they know. Um, just so they know what you're doing. You're not just like
Right.
quiet, like
Yeah.
reading the docs or something. Because
Makes
they
sense.
might think you're like even cheating or something, you know, like looking up like the, so it's
Yeah.
just good to like let them know. Do you have any questions for me? Or does anybody have any questions? I mean, I guess I'll let you go first, Ian, if you have something.
Oh, thank you. No, the way that you explained it after the fact was pretty straightforward. Thank you for the feedback, by the way. I appreciate it, and the opportunity in
Yeah.
general.
Yeah.
This was cool. This was also the um, I've never tried to make one of these functions with functional components before, so this was
Yeah,
cool.
that's what I noticed. The boot camps need to update the curriculums, man. Front end's moving too fast. Like I was telling people the last time I did it. So I've been finding out that like I don't think hardly any of the boot camps are teaching hooks yet. And that's really surprising because
Mm-mm.
all the companies are using hooks now, as far as I know.
Right.
If you're not using hooks, you're like in a legacy code base. Um,
Wow.
so like I started
Springboard
Lyft.
starting with hooks.
Yeah, that's
Hooks
good
in
that
it.
they're updating, because I like I just quit Lyft, but I was at Lyft for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
And we were using hooks from the beginning. There was some legacy class components, but ever since I started, the team never wrote a single class component. Like if new code was going in, it was a functional component. And I think every company is like that. I think the only time you're writing class components is in legacy code bases. So
That's good to know.
I think it's good. I mean, if you learned it in boot camp, but like I would like teach yourself hooks.
Yeah.
Just so you're ready for like, you can learn it on the job, but like, I mean, it'll be easier if you just study it and like use it. Cause like even for interviews, like just writing hooks makes everything easier. I think once you get it, like I didn't like hooks at first. It took me a little while to warm up to it. I'm like, this is strange. Like, what is this like array thing that you put at the end? And I was like a hooks hater in the beginning because it had so much hype and I was like, why has this got so much hype? This is such a strange like API. But then once you get it, you're like, oh, this is way better than
Yeah.
the
I
way
totally
that
agree.
this is way better than the way that we used to do it.
Mhm.
So sometimes it takes a little while for it to just click and be like, oh, this is awesome. So, but yeah. Another thing, I would probably just make this, I think this would be easier if you just made it like a static value, like the username, rather than like iterating through the array, because you were doing like index of, which like iterates through the array. So performance wise, it's not that good. It probably wouldn't be noticeable with only 100 users, but just something to think about. Like this is just a string. You're not iterating like through the array to like get something. So that's just one other thing I just noticed when I just looked at this. But other than that, the code is like clean, super easy to understand.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam.